Thank you very much.
You want to add it? How you know?
In the end, rather explosive matter, the issue of
Got it done.
federalism in India. And of course, the discussion is new. It's always new every time you have it. But clearly, this in different language is a matter that goes back many, many centuries. I'm sure in a different language, this is a question that concerned the rulers in the times of the Guptas and the Mauryas, the Mughals and the British. Federalism, the essence of the question is about center state in today's language, or the seat of the prime government in India and its relationship with what is perceived as the periphery. So this is, of course, a matter on which our panelists are remarkably well placed to speak. On the far left, we have with us Umar Farooqi, spokesperson for the NCP, and we've seen in Maharashtra how much churning there has been in the last day or two, and you've been quite in the thick of it, and no doubt you can tell us more about that in relation to the issue of federalism that we've been discussing.
Certainly.
Shupriya Srinath from the Indian National Congress, a very familiar figure, very eloquent spokesperson for the Congress party. And of course, we have with us Pradyut Manikya from the Tipramotha in Tripura. And yesterday, we had a fascinating exposition from Pradyut on the Northeast. And many of us who were fortunate to be here, I think, learned more from you on the Northeast, from the Northeast yesterday than we had known for a long time before. Thank you for that, and looking forward to hearing you again. Of course, Mohammad Amin Saab, the former Chief of Protocol of the Election Commission of India. Beginning with you, Amin Saab, where do you see federalism today? Is it a problem or has it been sorted? The Constitution, of course, grappled with this and came up with the union list and the state list and the concurrent list. But that's the lists in the Constitution. How is it playing out?
Actually, I'm from the UP, basically.
Yes.
So, federalism and localization policy making India focus on UP, I can say now, right now. So, India is a federal country with parliamentary form and government with, means country is divided into state. Each state will have its own elected government. Constitution lays down division of power between center and state, and Constitution is supreme law in India.
Yes.
And the localization of the policy making refer to the discrimination of the power from central government to state government, allowing them to make policies, decisions that are more in tune with the local needs and aspirations of the citizens. We all know that every state has a different need, and to cater to that need, we require state-specific policy to fulfill the need and aspiration of the people living in those states. In India, localization of the policy making has been given a lot of importance on various measures taken to strengthen in the role of the state government in policy making, that is the giving more financial power to the state. Financial Commission of India is responsible for the distributing financial resources. Various criteria such as the population, per capita income and area, and other important steps, creation of the institution, Niti Ayog, Interstate Council. In addition, encourage formation of the religion parties.
Yes. Thank you for that summary of the position. It's really is good that you spoke with us first, because that really is the standard, the ideal that has been set out constitutionally. How do you see that playing out, Pradyut?
Well, thank you so much for your kind words in the beginning. I obviously haven't come as well prepared as Sir, but I do believe that one is what is written and one, what is practiced. And since you invoked history, I think whenever there has been a powerful ruler, whether it was the Mughals under Akbar or Aurangzeb, or for the matter a very powerful East India Company, or for that matter the British, or when Indiraji was there, and now when we have the Modi Sarkar, whenever there has been a strong center, there has been at some level a certain amount of dilution of federalism. And that has been practiced across. But I keep on telling this to all those who are in power today, that power is not permanent, and even the highest and the mightiest have had to bite the dust. Following what is written in the Constitution is one thing, and actually practicing it is another. I myself can, since Sir is from the Election Commission, I can give you a prime example. I was the Congress President, party which now Supriya proudly represents, and something which I'm always been very close to the party. And I remember the 2019 elections, and we went and we met the Election Commission with the top Congress leaders. I was the PCC president, and there was mass-scale rigging. 167 booths had to be repolled again. We went to the Supreme Court. We got no relief in the Election Commission. We went to the Supreme Court. It took them 10 seconds to kick a case out, though it was being represented by some of the top lawyers. That was one point when I realized that when the machinery has made up its mind in Delhi, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, what is written in the Constitution, eventually will be practiced by who is at the top and how powerful they are. So for federalism to thrive in India, it is very important to have a very strong opposition. It is very important to have checks and balances, and it is very important for politicians to show some spine. Because with all due respect to bureaucracy, bureaucracy has not made us politicians. We have been chosen by democracy. And the bureaucracy will toe a line of those who are in power, and especially when they don't see an option of somebody else coming back to power.
Yes.
Federalism today, in 3 lines, is under grave danger. Federalism today needs to be further strengthened, and it is entirely up to the opposition to realize this and work together or have a certain amount of understanding, because a center without any opposition is not only dangerous for politics, it's dangerous for India. We also need the center to be on their toes, because everyone works their best when they are pushed to a corner or when they are pushed to the brink.
Supriya, that should mean a difficult question for you, our guests. We all remember the days of Indira Gandhi. The minute a state elected a government she didn't like, she found a way of getting rid of it. She was ruthless throughout her term and got more and more ruthless towards the end of her term. So today, where does the Congress stand? Are you now, as opposition, asking for quite the opposite of what Indira Gandhi practiced?
I choose to disagree with you. With all due respect, I disagree with you. And I will just take a step back and talk about federalism slightly more optimistically than my friend Pradyut here does. And I will then talk about the fault lines that certainly exist. To me, federalism is, and I hate the word double engine. I truly hate it, because I think it undermines the states across India. There is no such thing as double engine. When there are 2 engines, it's a trouble engine. And we've seen it in parts of India. I hate that concept. I hate the whole theory that comes with it. I think Indian states are the first port of call as far as law and order is concerned, as far as empowerment is concerned, as far as important issues like land are concerned, and the states need to be empowered. There is no shying away from the fact that the center and the state are perhaps partners in the growth story, are perhaps partners in economic development, but they are not, the states cannot be reduced to be mere cheerleaders of the central government, and I see increasingly a lot of that happen. To me, that's the fault line. To me, the good story is that the resilience, and this is something that we spoke in our previous session early this morning, the resilience of the Indian democracy, the checks and balances that exist. Tomorrow there is an election from the southern state of Karnataka, and all polls point towards a big victory for the Congress. The ruling BJP will be trounced out. That to me gives me a lot of optimism. Whether it is government formation that happened in Himachal or one that happens in Karnataka, or for that matter West Bengal, where Mamata Banerjee wins and she's not with us. But I think that's the resilience of the Indian democracy. I think during times of COVID, for instance, India managed COVID well. That was the big story that was being carried out. But hang on, the credit has to be given to the states that managed it, including the BJP ones. I'm not saying just the Congress ones or the opposition ones. I think the states were the first port of call for any emergency. They were the first port of call how they were managing COVID. And I think chief ministers, elected representatives there, local MLAs, local bodies need to be empowered and need to be given the surety that yes, there's a central government that will back you. But guess what? The central government should have a plate full of issues like national security, should have a plate full of issues like foreign policy and things like that. The central government doesn't have to act like any engine. The engine should be run by the state government.
True, there is of course a difference fundamentally between what should be and what is, but we'll come back to that. But Umar, we've been seeing the mess in Maharashtra the last day or two. Looking at this kind of thing, we see almost a provocation for a center or any government in the center to clamp down and to say that, look, this is not going to work, this is not how India can work, and so the government will, at the center, will find a way to, let's say, to put it politely, encourage another government in its place that is more in tune with what it wants. So is the kind of position in Maharashtra today really a provocation to limit, if not end, federalism?
I would partially agree with this because as in the previous panel, Dr. Raghuram Rajan said that we have a course correction system in India. If someone is trying to exceed their powers, then we do have machineries like the judiciary. We do have machineries like certain institutions that can control any ultra-virus actions. The Constitution of India was founded on the basis of separation of powers theory, where we have every institution will work according to its jurisdiction. But as you've said, that there has been, Maharashtra is a prime example of what federalism was, when federalism was in danger. But again, the Supreme Court, although has not clearly said that this government is illegitimate, but has clearly said that the governor of Maharashtra did not act legitimately. He shouldn't have gone beyond his powers and called for a trust vote. So these are the things that where we see that separation of powers does exist. And federalism, India's federalism, we can say that around the world is one of the most unique, one of its kind, sui generis. So our federalism is not similar to the United States federalism. Our federalism is more of a quasi-federalism. As you were pointing that question to Mr. Amin, we have a state list, concurrent list, we have a union list, but although we do have some upper hand of the central government, but the states are also independent. But we need to remember that India is not only just one set of people. We have 28 states. I heard someone yesterday who spoke really well, and he said that we have 28 Indias. Each state represents India, and we, like Pradyoti represents Northeast. So his idea of India is different from what the south of India thinks. But we all, as governments, we all want to work together to strengthen how we can strengthen democracy. And in this course, I believe that what has happened in Maharashtra was unfortunate, but we do have a system in place like judiciary who can correct these courses.
Well, yes, and we will, of course, no doubt have a good deal of input from our members here. So do please be ready, and I'll look out for who has something to say. But while we assemble our questions in our mind, a quick thought to the panel here. There is a difference between what should be and what is. We know what should be, and we know that, well, there are institutions and there's a course correction. Eventually, of course, if a mess continues, it will sort itself out. And afterwards, you can call it a course correction. But the price can sometimes be very heavy. I can speak with some experience, having reported Punjab in the 1980s, ancient as I am, of how your erstwhile friend, Shukriya, no doubt, Indira Gandhi, and we all know this, built up Bhindranwale to neutralize the Akali Dal, and Punjab is still bleeding from this. And this was the most dramatic of this, and perhaps the most consequential instance of a clampdown on federalism. A clampdown on federalism, of course, is really also a clampdown on democracy. States have their own elections, they have their own elected leaders, and that has to be respected. And I'm not sure that has always been respected, and it's not just the Congress party. I only mention that because that's something I'm personally familiar with. But Amin Saab, you set out the rule book. What is the model to follow? Are you convinced that this model is being followed?
Actually, when we have the elections, before the election of model code of conduct announced or the election announced, we have all party meetings, head of the meetings in the election commission, they are coming all head of the parties. And commission has to discuss with them and giving them, these are the lines, you cannot go beyond this line. Like always they are having about the caste, creed and their corruption and their personal attacks. So there is a model code of conduct, so they agree everyone.
Is
Nowadays
the model being followed?
Nowadays, after that they are not following. So election commission has given last 2 years back, they are giving the pro forma to every party. They have signed it. If they are not agree or they are not following, so we take the action against with them.
Is this proving effective and corrective?
Actually, the election commission has no teeth. And this is passed by the parliament. And that at the time of 13, Mr. Qureshi was there, Dr. Qureshi, S.Y. Qureshi, so he has submitted so many things. Like one, you see, recently you have seen 1 year back, they have Aadhaar card combined with this election card. So 1 or 2, they have done it. But they know everything. If this is done, so this is the, everyone find there. And so they don't want to be in clutch. So every party person is not supporting the election commission. We are going through the law, and law is made by the parliament.
But you are
and they are always blaming to the election commission.
But you are not, you say it's toothless in implementing what is agreed.
Yeah.
Pradyot, you let us in on the secret that you guys have been sharing.
I agree that the election commission is a toothless tiger. It was not when Sheshan was there. But then that was changed. The current Prime Minister of India also was a Chief Minister.
At the time of the session, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi has inducted 2 more.
No, it was Narasimha Rao. Narasimha Rao. I'm sorry, it was Narasimha Rao.
Yes.
Rajiv Gandhi
carry on, please.
was the Prime Minister till 89. It was P.V. Narasimha Rao.
So they have inducted 2 more
I
commissioners.
know, Krishnamurthy
Yes.
And they were sidelined by the session.
Yes, as soon as Pradyot is done, do please
you can
illuminate
come
us on this.
back.
Thank you.
The fact is it's a toothless tiger henceforth, since 1994, if I'm not mistaken. And the most interesting part is our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji was himself the Chief Minister of Gujarat when Centre was keenly fighting against him in Gujarat, and he spoke about Gujarat Asmitav, which was a part of federalism. It was also very interesting to note that when someone from the Northeast, James Michael Lingdor, was the Chief Election Commissioner, his religion was invoked during the elections, comparing it to somebody from the Congress, the UPA chairperson at that time. I think the model code of conduct has always been violated, and till the time the Election Commission isn't given independent power, it will always just be an advisory body to politicians. A very important part of federalism And because I come from a very small state of Northeast we have very small states, Goa, very small state, the role of a governor. According to me, the role of a governor should be clearly defined. Personal opinion, please don't quote me on it, but this is my personal opinion. It should be scrapped because it is a legacy of the British Raj. It's a burden on the exchequer. The governor lives in a Raj Bhavan. It's extremely colonial. And he or she should be moved away. But the role of the governor is extremely important. And in states, smaller states, including a big state like Maharashtra, the role of a governor has come under heavy scrutiny. And it would be a less controversial statement to say today, but the governor today is completely gone against the basis of neutrality, and the governor acts on the whims and fancies of those who are in Delhi.
The muscle of the center.
The muscle of center. And the judiciary here then takes up the matter, and you wait till years to come, and by then the MLAs are comfortable where they are because there's something called status quo. So if we need to strengthen federalism, I do believe that our founding fathers of the constitution, we tend to always go back, Omar Bhai, that, oh, the great founding fathers of our constitution, the great thinkers, they did not think about decay in morality. They spoke from a point of view where they thought that this was the India they wanted. Today, the constitution needs to be relooked, revisited, and more checks and balances need to come if you want federalism to survive. I do agree that Karnataka looks like a very good situation for the Congress party. I do believe that Chhattisgarh looks the same, but I'm extremely worried in a case like Bihar or in states like in parts of Uttar Pradesh where there is a close fight. You will actually see a lack of level playing field, and that is something which disturbs us. Today in Manipur, I've got a press release. 8 out of the 10 Kuki MLAs have asked for a separation from Manipur. They are from BJP. Why is this happening? This is happening because there is internal strife, and the government of India needs to empower, no matter how small the community, no matter how small the state needs to feel that they are a part in the nation building. And that can never happen if diktats are sent from Delhi to the state.
Your thoughts, Supriya?
I'm just going to keep doing the optimistic Supriya to Pradyut's very pessimistic view, but I share his concerns.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah,
That's
no, I'm not going to play the good cop, but I will say 2 things, and I think that's where my optimism comes from. With all due respect to you, sir, right here, you've been in the Election Commission. 8th May, 5 p.m., the campaign in Karnataka ended. At 9 p.m., the Prime Minister's handle releases a video the next morning and the previous evening asking for votes. Is that violation of the moral code of conduct or not? Did the Election Commission take it into notice? Did the Election Commission act on it or not? No, they did not. But the fact that the Prime Minister could get away with this is why the Election Commission or institutions, and which is why institutions need to be held responsible. But I think where the optimism comes from is the fact that India's highest court, the Supreme Court, says that henceforth election commissioners and the Chief Election Commission should be appointed by a panel which comprises of the leader of the opposition, the Prime Minister, as well as the Chief Justice of India. I think it's very good because I think it puts the checks and balances that our democracy, that our liberal democracy needs, which is where the optimism comes from. My optimism also comes from the fact that despite various instances of governments being toppled, democratically elected governments being toppled, a mandate being stolen overnight through agencies, through money, through muscle power, you see that those very governments that are toppled are voted out of office. Karnataka was a government by stealth. They're going to be voted out of office. Madhya Pradesh is a government by stealth. I can bet my bottom dollar on the fact that they will be voted out of office. So I think that's the resilience that I keep talking about. But I just want to add one bit to federalism. And I think it's important to say it here because since 1947, we've stayed a united nation because you have to understand that, yes, India has so much diversity. Ethnic diversity, languages, regions. There are aspirations. You cannot paint India with one color. Anybody who tries to do this is being truly unwise and is truly going against the very tenets of federalism. Because India is multiple Europes wrapped in one. How do you paint that entire country with one color?
So
Umar?
if I can
Yep.
just add
Please,
one
Pradyut, yes, please.
and being neutral here, and one has to look within. I think a lot of the problem, let's leave Northeast out, a lot of problems in Kashmir happened when a popular chosen government in 1987 was not allowed to, when people were not allowed to exercise their free mandate. And that led to a lot of frustration amongst the people in Kashmir, which led to militancy. So there have been instances, we're talking about Punjab, and very rightfully you picked up Punjab. I do believe that when people's choices are not respected and they see it openly, blatantly, then there is a vacuum. And let's be very honest, there are people who are across the border, not just in Pakistan, but in China, in parts of our neighborhood, which would like to see Indian democracy weaken. And if Indian democracy is weakened, it will be when there is a weakening of the federalism as well. So that's something which I would like to add.
Umar, your thoughts, please, because you've shared with us your thoughts of what should be, but where do you see federalism now, and are you happy with the way it's playing out?
Well, I would echo to what Supriyaji just said, and I would add to it by saying that Justice Subbarao, he talked about federalism, and he said that India is not a unitary state, but it's a federal polity, and it's a basic doctrine of Indian constitution. So we, when we speak in the United Kingdom, although we know that we have challenges in India, but what I would say is that in India, especially the states, should be given more powers. What we see is that the concept of federalism is decentralization of powers. However, like Pradyutji mentioned before, that there has been instances where we see centralization of powers, and a lot of people feel, heads of institutions also say, that we are seeing that centralization of powers is happening right now. So to combat that, we need to understand that the fundamental constitutional values should be upheld, and the government in power today should consider this on a positive note, because the more powers you give to the state, the better it is for our democracy. We are talking in United Kingdom, asking investors to come and invest in Maharashtra, Telangana, Northeast, but how will that happen if central government keeps on interfering in state government's plans, policies, the way they should function, the way they shouldn't function? So these are core elements, and especially when you are abroad, we are inviting investors, and a lot of investors say, oh, what if, is there stability in Maharashtra? Is there stability in Karnataka? Oh, so these are prime concerns that we need to keep in mind. And Indian government today should celebrate the constitutional values. It's high time that we should take note of it.
Questions from the floor? Thoughts, please? Gentleman there? But while, sorry, yeah, you're ready. Please carry on.
My questions to Pradyut, Supriyaji, and Umar. So one of the ways as you pointed out, that federalism is, there's a major importance of federalism and the role of the governor. So I was wanting to ask you, can we look at maybe, people choosing the governor like they do in the US as a mode of strengthening federalism?
So I'll take that. I think whatever problems exist in India, and I'm going to quote my leader Rahul Gandhi on this, these are our problems, these are Indian problems, and we will solve them internally. I agree that the partisanship of a governor does sometimes threaten federalism more than anything else, but I think it's an Indian problem, and we're not going to use this fora to talk about what we need to do about it. I think internally, India has to decide what we do about this. Our elected representatives, we the political class, and the people of the country.
I can
Sure.
say something in this. And I'm patriotic, so let me put a caveat here, because otherwise I'll get into a lot of problems. Anyway, I come from a disturbed area as perceived. India had a Upapramukh before the governor's role had come. And why don't we make an Indian form of governor? I mean, why are we taking everything from the British and just putting it for ourselves? have a indigenous role of a person, like we used to have Upapramukhs before the constitution was made, but get away with the colonial hangover. I completely think that we need to get over this, and there's an expenditure, waste in the expenditure. And why elect a governor when you have elected the chief minister, you've elected the ministers, you've elected the MLAs? A role of a neutral Upapramukh could be anyone, but the person should be well conversant and should not be a retirement position for a fading, aging, old politician. It could be anyone. You've had some great governors who have served the nation, generals, brigadiers, civil servants. So why not have them who understand the law and who will basically put a certain amount of integrity and proprietary in that position. Your last thing about electing people, and what even Supriya said, we are not criticizing our country, we love our country. We represent our country. But the essence of representing your country is also when you're speaking to the Indian diaspora here to tell you how we can improve our country, and we want to improve our country. And the country cannot be improved by one man's vision, it has to be collectively improved. The one man's vision can be he or she could be on top, but our views also have to be accepted. India cannot be an implementation of one man's dream. It has to be a dream of billions. And so for that to prosper, for that to be well represented, you will need to have a very clear check and balances. This is no longer, I belong to the royal family, erstwhile royal family. ये राजा का शासन नहीं है कि राजा ने जो सोचा वही होगा. This is the time where even the simplest, the most common denominator has a voice, and that has to be respected. And that can be with equality.
Okay. Thank you, Ritu. My question to both, I mean, all the panelists for that matter. The question is basically in terms of the federalism, we are talking about the political power, and distribution of power is the key, because UP, Maharashtra, or the Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, these are the states who dominate because when it comes to the politics. But at the same, that's one of the problem, one side of the coin, one side of the problem. And the second side of the problem is distribution of wealth. You know, federalism is not only about polity, but it's also economy, right? So is that happening in the lens of federalism? Because when we see that, you know, we had a discussion yesterday on the region specific of Northeast, and we heard that very clearly. It didn't at least sound that that's happening. Because, you know, there are only top 5 cities or top 6 cities we talk about when you talk about India. And the wealth is coming from those 5, 6 cities. And over the last 2 days, we discussed about those cities tremendously. So I mean, especially when you guys are going to get into the governments in future, if at all, what would be your plan of handling these 2 different areas? One is polity and the second is economy. So how are you going to work on the distribution of wealth is one area, and how about like giving more powers to, just because of the state is bigger and the others are like being neglected. So these are the 2 elements.
On a lighter note, because she's saying that I'm very pessimistic today, I had a very long conversation with her leader, who was a good friend of ours, Rahul Gandhi, had a good thing. And I said, create more states. If America, with a population of 40 million, can have 50 states, 52 states, then why can't India, with a population of 1.4 billion now, have another more states? That way you will control the checks and balances. Today you win UP, you won half of India. You bring in a bit of Bihar and UP and parts of Madhya Pradesh, and India is one. So then we are insignificant. South does not matter. So the idea is that, I mean, I'm saying it I said it in jest, but actually I seriously mean it. Create more states. And I am telling you, disruption is not bad always. Disruption is good. I think you need to break the monopoly and the complete domination of a few regions, because today we are actually giving credence to population. This country says, हम दो हमारे दो, and then rewards those जो बोलते हैं कि हमारे पास तो 10 करोड़ लोग हैं, आपके पास तो सिर्फ 4 लाख हैं. So then in that case, you're going against your basic policy. We are rewarding population growth rather than economic growth. So it is very important for us to actually redistribute and the domination of states, and it will be wonderful, and it will be great for the development of UP if you have Harit Pradesh. It will be great if you have Bundelkhand. I mean, why on earth shouldn't the Gorkha people have Gorkha land? Why not?
Right. Your thoughts on that, Shupriya, please?
You know, the bit that you said about some cities and some states doing better, you can't shy away from some realities, and those realities are that there are some states of India which are traditionally manufacturing states, are traditionally richer, are traditionally more economically well off, and there are those who are not. You know, in the past they've been called Bimaru states and the rest, which is why I'm a big believer in this. I believe in competitive federalism. I think, yes, every state should have and should be allowed to bid for projects. Every state should be allowed to come and talk about themselves overseas or in India, attract the best investments that are coming. And which is where I believe that the central government needs to act like a facilitator. You cannot take projects away from Maharashtra to Gujarat because you don't have a government in Maharashtra, or you did not have it back then. You cannot take away projects from Tamil Nadu to another state because you're not in government there. I think that is where project by stealth cannot happen. Just like government by stealth is wrong, economy by stealth is also wrong. You know, if there is a certain project that has come to the state of Maharashtra where you may not be in government, it needs to stay there. And just because you've toppled a democratically elected government doesn't mean you can take that project away, which did happen. So I believe in competitive federalism. I also believe the equitable distribution that you talk about, some of the things that we are the original architects of, if there was an ideal GST without its multiple problems that there are, that is what it was intended at, right? Like, you know, to do away with these crests and troughs of economy that exist in India. So there are solutions, and I think internally we have to look for those solutions. Of course, there will always be out of the box thinking, but again, it has to be politically and socially palatable. It's good for us to sit here and say small states are easily manageable, no denying that, but are the larger states willing to be broken up, and should we think about that without the will of people? So I think eventually everything boils down to what are people going to talk and think about.
Well, we are coming to the end of the session. Sadly, there's one last question. I'm going to cheat, I'm going to be rude, and I'm going to be the one asking it and raising it. There is certainly a question, and we are critical of the central force being too forceful. Surely, the person at the center, whether it's Chandragupta Maurya or the Mughals or the British or Indira Gandhi or Narendra Modi, has to bear in mind an overwhelming historical pattern that whenever the center has been weak, India has been colonized and conquered. These are not historical fears. There is a continuing threat from the northwest, as there has been for centuries. Independent India has been attacked by Pakistan 4 times already, and it's been not that many years. China is a constant threat. There is a perception in Delhi, the capital, that if the fragmentation were to exceed a point in the name of federalism, the center then might get weakened and remain unable to withstand the kind of external threats that it has had to deal with and that it wants no more of. So is that a consideration that surely is also legitimate?
Any of us can take it? Okay, I'll take
Shupriya.
it and then you know, I personally believe strong states make up for a stronger center. There cannot be insecurity between state and the center. A strong, empowered state means a strong, empowered India. And dare anyone look at it like that. I don't think it's a function of do strong states mean a weak center. I don't think it's a binary choice. There can be very strong, empowered states, and there can still be a very strong center. Because the division of responsibility done by our constitution is very good. I mean, our founding fathers had the foresight to do it. Land, police, law and order is all states' problems. Foreign policy, national security, center's problem. They can both coexist and both can be equally strong. So I don't quite agree with that premise.
All right, just learning a lesson, very quick lesson, sorry, in a bit, Pradyut, just a very quick lesson from our subject of discussion. I did rule out 2 questions, but we can't play state, center and federalism here. Yeah. So 2 questions very quickly from you and from you, but after Pradyut has shared his thoughts. So those will be the final two questions. Pradyut, please.
So, you know, I'm also a student of history. And what you said about, you know, Chandragupta Maurya, we were strong. During the Mughals, we were strong. You know, because of the hardline approach of Aurangzeb, Chhatrapati Shivaji also came. He was not in foreign power. Because of the hardline position, because I remember my father was a member of parliament in the Congress, and during the 70s, if anyone questioned some of the leaderships in the Congress party at that time, who now are in BJP, incidentally, so they were said that ye foreign hand, American hand, you know, and then there was this line that, oh, ISI. So resistance to a strong center does not necessarily come from invading forces from outside. Today, look at our neighbors. I mean, if you look beyond China, Pakistan is a destroyed state. We don't need to worry about Pakistan. The fact is that a strong center can also weaken India within if it's not responsible. Would we say that Vajpayee ji was a bad prime minister? No. Would we say that Dr. Manmohan Singh, India did not grow under Dr. Manmohan Singh? Absolutely not. Did Narasimha Rao not lay the fundamental basis of Pokhran? And India, in fact, had a lot of problems when Rajiv Gandhi had absolute majority. So this entire historical anecdote, I've quoted from the time of Aurangzeb, is that resistance always comes from within. And there is no foreign hand. This is a fallacy to say that if Supriya or Umar Bhai or Pradyot question whoever is in the center, we are actually playing into the hands of foreign governments. This is my duty to make my leader realize my leader is my prime minister. My party leader could be somebody else, but my country's leader is my prime minister.
Yes.
And it is a duty for us to show the prime minister the mirror and then say that we think that this is where the problem lies.
Yes.
So that cannot be said that, oh, this amounts to treason and there's a larger conspiracy to weaken India. Sure. India was strengthened not because of a man. It was because of the willingness of also many states who willingly merged with India. So
Yes.
I think it is very important to realize that aspect of history as well.
All right.
And we run the risk of doing it on foreign soil. That's the other conspiracy theory.
All right.
I thought this was Indian soil.
Sorry, we wind up. It's time to wind up. Two very quick fire questions. Quick questions, one response, please.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Vikram. I am a technical consultant working in London. We talk about strong center and strong state and all that, which is fantastic. But if you look of Indian population, we are 1.3 or 4 billion people, 544 member of parliaments. So if you look at the representation of parliament and parliamentarians, there are I think one parliamentary representing 2 to 3 million people. I mean, back home, I don't get to see my member of parliament because he's so busy. He doesn't have time for me. In UK, there are 60 million.
We'll have time only for a question, please.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
And we got 600 plus MPs. So do you think we need more member of parliament in the country so that we empower our citizens? And if citizens are feeling stronger, then country shall feel strong as well.
Umar, why don't you respond to that?
I think
Please.
the more the better. As Pradyut said, that it'll be efficient if we have more states, if we have more member of parliaments, as long as they uphold the constitutional values, as long as federalism is strengthened, representation is adequate, then I don't think it will be an issue.
Final question at the back, please. Thank you. Amin sir, if you could respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the panelists. So going beyond the politics of state and central, does the panel have any thoughts on the role of civil society and voices of normal citizens, ordinary citizens, in maintaining the federalism of India, especially at a time when they feel that they're increasingly under scrutiny and threat?
Amin sir, please. do ordinary citizens and the civil society, NGOs, have a voice, and should they have a voice in maintaining and strengthening federalism? Is that right? Yes. Yeah.
Every voter is always given the right to elect the government, state government or the central government, means assemblies and parliament members, elected by the voters directly.
And civil society, NGOs, groups independent of the center or states?
No, they always invited for any suggestions, time to time by the election commission.
Do they come to you or do you seek them out?
They come to directly to commission. Yeah, and they have to direct say anything, like parties meeting.
You don't seek them out?
Pardon? No. Always welcome.
No,
Even
so he means that, So I think the response to your question at the back is that I think Amin Saab agrees that there's a role for them and that their input and intervention is welcomed. Of course, what that leads to is another question, but we don't have time for that. But thank you very much to our panelists.
one more, I think, add this is,
Please, last
all
word.
party heads are always welcome to give any suggestion. Don't blame the election commission every time.
No. We don't blame you for anything. We are very thankful to you.
We neither blame you or give you credit for anything.
For you. All right. Thanks very much to our panelists. A big hand for them. I think this has been a most interesting session. Thank you very much.